Hey friend, welcome to my podcast, The Fit Soul. I'm your host, Amy Ramsey. In this podcast, we will be discussing soul-filled strategies to unleash your confidence, increase your energy, and all the things healthy lifestyle. If you're a Christian woman who is ready to reach your God-given potential, walk worthy of your calling with abundant joy and energy, girlfriend, you are in the right spot. I mean, you only have one life to live. You might as well maximize it. Buckle in, and thanks for listening.
Hello and welcome back to the Fit Soul Podcast. I am so grateful that you are here. Thank you for tuning in, and for any new listeners, I'm so excited that you are here, and I don't believe you're here by accident. I believe it is a divine appointment. I'm really excited today because I have a friend and actually my doctor on the podcast, Dr. Meredith Travelstead. Welcome.
Thank you, Amy.
I'm so glad that we finally made this work.
We have been trying.
We have. Mm-hmm. So you've been my physician since I've been living in Mississippi. Mm-hmm. And I'm so excited to share your story with my listeners, because I love the mission that you have. I love your heart, and I love what you're doing. So again, thank you for being here and welcome.
Thank you. The feeling is mutual. The admiration is mutual.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so, just a little bit about yourself. How long have you been practicing medicine, and how long did you know you wanted to be a doctor, all that?
Well, I've been practicing obstetrics and gynecology for 23 years at the Women's Clinic in Jackson, Mississippi.
If you don't have a doctor, are you even taking new patients?
Not right this minute.
Oh, never mind.
But I have a lot of great partners that are. So.
Yeah, you can still come here. Okay.
Yes. So it is. It's been a pleasure. I thought when I was little, my dad was an oral surgeon, and I thought I wanted to do some kind of surgery. I loved watching him in high school. I would assist him, and I didn't know what kind of surgery I wanted to do. And then when I went to medical school, I thought, it would be some kind of surgical subspecialty. And then when I did the OBGYN rotation, I thought, wow, this is neat. They do surgery, but they get to know women, and they see women year after year and build a relationship. And then delivering a baby was just the most wonderful thing in the world. And I wouldn't trade anything. It's special time, really special time with a family. So it was just, to me, it's the best job ever, because you get all of the things. You get surgery, and you get continuity of care, get to know your patients and their families year after year, and delivering a baby is just the most precious thing.
It's got to be the most precious thing. All of that you said about surgery and all of that, I couldn't be more opposite. So I love that God made you that way. But I'll never forget, Meredith, when I gave birth to my daughter, my firstborn, and I had this precious doctor. He was older, Dr. Armstrong.
Yes.
And Dr. Armstrong, we had all sorts of, I was in labor for, it was like 18 hours. It was a long time, and I think most people would have done a C-section, but he was old school. And that was fine by me, because I didn't want a C-section. She was sunny side up. So it was a struggle.
Difficult.
It was a difficult labor and delivery.
Yes.
And finally, by the time she came, I remember my mom and my ex-husband, all of them were excited, and they ran out the door, to show the baby to everybody. Everybody was waiting. And in that time, my great-grandmother passed away in the same hospital where I was the very same day, a few hours before. It was just this kind of crazy day.
Wow.
And they didn't tell me until after I had given birth. But it was just Dr. Armstrong and I in the room. And it was like, I've been in labor for so long. And I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, it's just a mother can't describe that feeling. There's no words for it.
It is.
And I was emotional, and it was just me in there, and the baby. No, they had taken the baby, and it was just me and him, and I'm just processing it all. I said, Dr. Armstrong, I know you do this all the time, and he stopped me. He goes, it is a miracle every single time. What a beautiful, beautiful thing. Wow.
Every time.
Wow.
That's right. Absolutely.
Life.
People
is a
ask
miracle.
all the time, do you ever get tired of this? I'm like, never. I mean, it's just so awesome.
Yeah. So you have a demanding career.
Yes.
And you've got 3 boys.
3 boys.
You're a busy mom.
Yes, ma'am.
And those are your priorities. What I love about you is that you also have a mission beyond. God's given you a calling and a mission, and I would love to talk about that. And really, to me, the impact you're making. I look and I'm like, "Whoa, wow, she's amazing." So,
well, it's kind of a funny story when the pandemic was going on and everything was shutting down. You could just feel the anxiety that everyone had and patients had, and room after room in these exam rooms, seeing patients, everyone was so anxious and worried and depressed and isolated, and they weren't interacting with family anymore, and churches were shutting down. And at that time in my life, I was not on any kind of social media. I kind of tried to stay away from it just for boundaries, as you're saying.
Yeah.
And I was a little trepidatious about it, but I didn't. Well, back up. At our church, our women's minister had asked me in the past several times to do like your testimony, share your story, talk about, some ministry or whatever you're doing. And I was like, I don't really do that kind of thing. I didn't want to put myself out there, and I made excuses many, many times. I felt like as a physician, I would be like holier than thou. I didn't want to be preachy or, self-righteous. And I, maybe was a little intimidated by it. So I always made excuses. And so also at the same time, my husband and I grew up together. Basically, we dated in high school, went to the same church youth group.
Oh, wow.
And
I love that.
It's in South Jackson, and we grew up there, and then moved and went to First Baptist and went to college through there, got married and med school, and then babies. And at some point we knew that this church had started called City Church, which we're very involved with now, and it's in South Jackson. And the kids and all that were younger than us at our church, our home church, are now the ministers of this church. And they had felt the calling to go take sack lunches to an apartment complex in basically near Metro Center Mall, inner city, Highway 80, South Jackson. And
for those of you who aren't from this area, like it is, you got to be careful.
Very poor part of town.
Poor part of town, but also dangerous part of town.
Yes.
Like it just you got to be incredibly careful.
So these little young 20-something-year-olds started going on Saturdays, taking sack lunches. Wow. Like a corn dog, Capri Sun, and a moon pie or whatever.
Wow.
And knock on doors. And I don't really know how that got started, their calling got started, but these kids in these apartment complexes, they had school breakfast and lunch all week long, but on Saturdays they often go without food. In Jackson, Mississippi, you think that doesn't happen, but it does.
Oh,
so they would just congregate outside, and they just kept going week after week, bringing lunches, knocking on doors. And they would have outdoor Bible studies, and eventually some parents would come out and they would meet, every weekend. And then they started meeting in the school right by the apartment complex, and it became really a little church service. And then they met in a community center, and eventually there was a church near a hospital in South Jackson, Meredith Central now. And the church had just dwindled away and was closing its doors, and they just handed them the keys and said, here you go. And so they renovated this church, and it's right there on Raven Road. And It has grown, and the model really was the kids first came, and they still go every Sunday and pick them up.
Wow.
And then now we've had a whole generation of kids growing up in the church. One of the kids' names was Ishmael, and he was 8 years old when he first, when they first started coming. And we weren't involved until they were several years in to the church, not on any consistent basis until then. But one time I asked Ish, he was like 23 or 4 by this time, and he's telling me the story of how it was from his perspective, an African-American 8-year-old in Jackson with these white 20-year-olds coming into their apartments and knocking on doors. And he was hilarious about it. He was like, "What are y'all doing? What do you want from us? Are you trying to get money?" And he didn't understand why they were coming. And he told his whole story and his perspective, and it was hilarious. I'm like, "Ishmael, we've got to tell this story.
Aww.
Somebody's got to tell the story.
Yeah.
Tell the story. I'm trying to pull on everybody around in the ministry team. I'm like, y'all need to tell the story of City Church. You need to tell the story of City Church." And so eventually, I think I'm going to pause that and take a side trail. So during COVID, our women's ministry decided they were going to send out videos, women doing a personal video, and just send it out because they weren't meeting.
Yeah.
And so our women's minister sent a text to me. "I want you to do a video for this COVID, shut in kind of send out videos about your," and she said it's Psalm 23. And at that point, I had, my husband had a year, let's see, when was that? Maybe 5 years before that. My husband had fallen off our roof and had traumatic brain injury, temporal bone fractures, and I had followed him to the hospital, and then he was in the ambulance and I was behind him. And at that point, going through that in my life, I was really realized that I was by myself because we had no family here, and I didn't know who to call because I always called him. I always called Joel. And so in that moment of following behind him in the ambulance, it was Psalm 23 that came to my mind. And that's what I kept repeating. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. And even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And so when my women's minister asked me to do this video, I felt like an almost audible word of God, like almost audible God saying, "It's time."
Yeah.
It was like, it's time. And I said, I can't do this. And it was like, no, you have to. Like God was saying, okay, I've brought you through your husband's recovery and all that struggle. And I've given you a testimony, and it's time for you to speak it. And so, again, I had not done any Facebook or anything. In my office here, I had a nurse from Labor and Delivery come over and video me. And at that time, I had this idea that I was going to quote Psalm 23 with all the COVID garb on. So I had a scrub gown, a scrub, the N95 mask, the shield over you, the hat on your head, because we thought our hair got COVID back then, I mean, it was like full on.
Yeah.
So when you started videoing me, that's where I started. And then I took every article off, like with each verse, I took an article of clothing off, and by the end, it was just, no scrub clothes, and just my scrubs. And I said, no matter what we have to put on during this time of the pandemic, whatever garb we have to cover up with, our rock, our salvation is Jesus Christ. Right. And that was David that quoted that scripture. Yeah. And he was saying that because he knew, and Jesus said later, he said, my Lord, I said to my Lord, that I will see you in heaven, you will take the right hand of the Father one day. So he knew he knew ahead of time there would be an anointed one, Messiah. So anyway, I said it much better than I'm trying to say it right now, but that awesome. Little video was shared by our women's ministry on Facebook. And mind you, I had any idea how Facebook worked, algorithms and all that stuff. I had no social media. I was not on anything, and still seeing patients every day. And someone would say, I saw your video. I saw your video.
Did it go viral?
65,000 views.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty viral.
I mean, just a little Jackson, Mississippi church, and I still filed that away. Still had no idea and didn't do anything with that at all.
Yeah.
So back to Ishmael. Yeah. This was 6 months or so later. And in my patients, they would say, one lady in particular, I remember a sweet little old lady seeing me 6 months after that video was done. She said, I just want you to know, when I was in despair, locked in, not getting out, not seeing anybody, I watched that video over and over and over again. I'm goodness. Like, really? I mean, I was just shocked. Like, was just so surprised. Again, just filed that away. Didn't think anything about it. And so Ishmael, one night, a Christmas party at the church, there was a program going on, and we had presents in the car. We went out to get presents, and his mother was there. Now, he was raised really by his grandmother. His mother wasn't there very often, so I didn't know her as well, but I had known Ish. He was older than my boys, so kind of they looked up to him when we would go to church. I knew him a couple of years in, and we went out to get presents from the car, and his mom was walking kind of near us, and she stopped me in the parking lot, and she just looked at me and she said, did you used to work at University of Mississippi Medical Center? And I said, yes, ma'am. She said, did you deliver babies? And I said, well, yes, ma'am. I trained there a long time ago, but I delivered babies there, but it was a long, long time ago, like 20 years ago. And she said, you delivered my son Ishmael.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
So at that point I was like, what? Because this was like, a guy who we went out to dinner with. He'd come to our house. He loved all my boys. They looked up to him. Strong Christian guy who had been raised in that church. And it was just so amazing. I ran into the church and I grabbed him and shook. I'm like, Ish, I delivered you. I mean, you just don't know kids you delivered in residency.
Yeah.
It just, it was just whenever you're on call and training, you don't know them.
Right.
And so it was just amazing to me. I was just in tears, and I even called my nurse. I'm like, I just met somebody I delivered in residency, and I've known him. Anyway, it was just great. And I was like, Ish, now we have to tell the story. Oh, wow. We have to tell the story. Mm. And so I just knew. I mean, it was just like it's time. Mm-hmm. That was my first video, and I said, this was a divine appointment. That's how the name came. This was a divine appointment. This was God putting a stamp on this ministry that I was involved with, and me meeting him. And if you ever just kind of wavered, should I really be here? Should I be at our home church? Or, we were kind of doing both, and we still kind of do both places, but it put a stamp on that ministry for me, and I wanted to share that story because I asked Ishmael, I said, how and why did those kids coming and bringing lunches and how did you take on their love of Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
What was it about that for you? And he said, well, they just loved on me. They just showed me so much love, and I didn't know how that worked. And then he said, they just kept coming.
Mm.
And so that is just burned in my head. They just kept coming. It was like the commitment, like, we're going to be here, and we're going to still be here, and we're going to keep coming back.
Right.
And it's not a drop in and drop out. It's like they just kept coming. And so it's just remarkable. The great backstory to it is Ishmael's grandmother and another grandmother at the complex were praying together before those young people ever came, that they prayed that God would send someone to bring Jesus Christ to their grandsons.
Wow.
And so it was like they were praying, and God burdened this team and put them all together. And to me, it's a beautiful combination of all that.
That is. Mamas and grandmamas, don't stop praying.
That's
Keep
right.
on praying. Keep on praying.
That's right.
I wonder if other ministries had come occasionally.
Yeah.
I wonder. I don't know.
Or, I mean, it was such a random thing. Why that apartment complex?
Yeah.
Why did they just pick it out of the blue?
Yeah.
Why did they feel burdened to go there?
Yeah.
Wasn't near their church.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
it's amazing.
That is an amazing story. I'm so glad you shared that. So you've got this video that's going viral. That's no big deal. You're making connections and divine appointments over Ishmael and that whole ministry, and now it's validated. It's still 2020, and are you now like, okay, it's time to use my voice. It's time. Hey, friend, I don't know if you realize or not, but I have a mentorship that is one of my very favorite places in the entire world to be. This mentorship is called Walk Worthy Mentorship, and it's for Jesus-loving women who are looking for spiritual growth, personal development, and how to build healthy habits and routines in their life. We are doing life together as iron sharpens iron, and we're taking a biblical approach to what we're doing and moving forward. I feel called to this mission and mentorship because there's nothing out there that's like it. I was looking for something for myself that would call me higher and push me forward and challenge me and help me to walk worthy of the calling that's inside of me. And I found myself trying to filter a lot of maybe some new age or self-reliance. I couldn't find one that was Bible-based. So this is a Jesus-first approach to personal growth, spiritual growth, and healthy habits. With tools, with frameworks. I am a certified health and nutrition and fitness coach and have been for 25 years. I'm a certified life coach and a high performance coach. So I love to help these ladies, to help watch them transform by giving them the tools, the structure, the framework, the things that they need to move forward in life and to do it together in community. That's what we're created for. We're created for community. So if you're looking for that place to help you to get out of your comfort zone or get your edge back, like get to the next level, I want to encourage you to come take a look at this group and come join us. It's incredible. And if this is like sounding like it's an alignment to you, come check it out. Go to walkworthy.thefitsoul.com. And we'd love to have you join us.
Well, I guess I guess we were learning YouTube, but I put that video for Ishmael on YouTube and shared it. And at first just on YouTube. I still wasn't on social media then. And that video, I can't even remember how many views. It was shared a lot. I guess people were on their phones and computers a lot during the pandemic.
That's true.
But anyway, I always say to him, "You're my famous friend," because he will tell me all the time, "Somebody saw something you did about me," because I'm like, "Well, you're part of my story now. I'm sorry," but because I've shared the story so much. But his video was shared a lot, and then I just started. I did eventually do social media and put it on there, and it was shared a lot. And at that point, there were some other things coming across my path, and I guess in the nature of my job, I was still seeing so many people down and anxious, and pandemic just isolated people from each other, and I wanted people to realize that God is still in the business of changing lives. And I was seeing some just remarkable people coming in and out of my rooms, or that God would just bring across my path. And I was like, man, people need to hear this story. They need to hear this story. They need to hear what God's doing here. And so that's really how it happened that I started doing a podcast. It was really just posting some videos at first, and then
I love this.
It grew out.
That is awesome. That's so awesome.
Amateur compared to you. I'm amateur, but it's really just a joy. It's something where you're doing something for fun.
Yeah.
And it's a joy. It's not monetary. It's nothing else. It's just a joy. And every time I think I say to my husband all the time, Joel, is this crazy? Is this cheesy? Should I do this? Is this valuable? Does anybody care about this? Am I wasting my time? Does this sound preachy? These are all the questions, like insecurities, like you were talking about. And every time I question it and I put it before the Lord, He confirms it with someone saying something.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He confirms it every time. And I'm like, okay, I hear you. And I think, so many times in Scripture too. I was reading in 2 Corinthians 4, I think it is. And it says, I believed, therefore I spoke. And I was like, yeah, I still need to do that.
You know, sorry, I didn't interrupt you. One of the things I was going to say is that I'm convinced that the enemy is after our voices. And I think all believers, but particularly women's voices. And I hear this consistently across the board. In fact, recently, a young woman, I watched her go through high school, and now she's a professional. It's like, when did time go by so quickly? Anyway, her mother attended a Bible study that I led, and she was telling me the story of she felt like she wanted to start a Bible study, but who would want to listen to somebody like her? And her mom was telling her, she goes, well, I did a Bible study and it was great. And, and it was just encouraging her to do that. And so she stepped out and she did do it, and it's going so great, but just a young lady. And it was just really interesting to me that she thought, who wants to hear my voice? I mean, and I think that's what we all think, but I believe that's the enemy, because if we stop, then that message can't go forth from the ripple, from the light, from the influence that we have.
Right.
And so I just think it's so powerful that you are doing nothing, like balancing all the big ball. Your practice is your first. I love that you're saying that this is a hobby. Should you be doing it? The answer is yes. Don't you stop. I'm going to march up to your office and say, you better start that podcast again.
I'm going to call Amy. Should I be doing this?
The answer is yes. Yes, the answer is yes. But that it can go out, and that you can, God's word does not return void.
Amen.
And that this is a modern day way that His word goes out.
That's right.
Through the YouTube, through the podcast, through the Google, through the Facebook, the Instagram, all the other things.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I just love that you're shining your light, and it's a beautiful thing. So the name of your podcast is called Divine Appointments. I love it.
And somebody also said, I said, yeah, I have appointments every day. Appointments, patients coming, and they're like, oh yeah, that too. I have medical appointments.
I didn't make that connection just now.
I know. It's like, it's like a play on words. I'm
Got
a physician, but there are divine appointments. Have you ever felt that way? Like you meet someone.
Oh, yeah.
And it was divine that you met
sure.
them, and it encourages you, or you encourage them, and
it's supposed to be.
It's like we need to recognize it more, that it's from the Lord, divine.
I used to pray. I don't do this. This is reminding me to do it, but I used to pray, Lord, who's my divine appointment today? Where are my appointments? Where are they? And it was bizarre how they were very clear. In fact, let me tell you this one divine appointment.
Yeah.
This was a really cool divine appointment because we all have divine appointments. I was better at remembering to pray that every day. Do you ever do that? Like, you start doing this, and it's like this great habit, and then somehow or another, like, what happened to that one? Okay, I'm going to pick it back up. So I was on my walk. I do a walk every morning, and I pray, and I was praying for, it was very clear to me who my divine appointment was, and to reach out to her. So I did, and I just sent her a quick text. Hey, I'm thinking about you today. I'm praying for you. You're amazing. She is. She's just amazing. So you're amazing. I'm just so blown away by all that you do. You're an amazing mom. And she reached back, immediately said, hey, can you call me? I'm like, yeah. And I know she's super busy. I'm like, yeah. Can I do it at like 3:00 today? I was slammed all day long. Yeah. Can I do it at 3:00 today? I wanted to make space. Yeah. So I called her, and anyway, she just broke down. She was in the middle of cancer, hadn't told anybody, and was in the hospital by herself. What? It was her birthday, and she couldn't be with anyone at this place of where she was in her cancer because her immune system was so low, and she just needed some encouragement. It was like, wow. Okay. So divine appointments are just powerful.
That's awesome.
Okay, so how can my audience connect with you and find you? Tell us where you are, all the places.
Yes, I am on social media now. So my name on Facebook, Meredith Travelstead, and YouTube, Instagram, and then Divine Appointments is the name on the audio platforms like Apple and Spotify and those.
All the things. Well, I'll definitely link everything up in the show notes. And I just want to say thank you for pursuing the things that God's put on your heart, for being courageous to use your voice. And you are a woman of valor and a woman of impact, and your light is bright. And I'm just so proud. I don't sound like I'm proud of you. I am. I'm just so blown away. I'm so grateful for all that you're doing, and it inspires me.
And you inspire me. Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, you guys. Well, thank you for being here, and go follow Meredith in all of the places. Go listen to her podcast. And if you found value in this podcast, do us a favor and share it. Yes. What do they say? Sharing is caring.
Yes.
Sharing is caring.
Yes.
So tag us on it. And anyway, thanks for being here, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Girlfriend, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I'm so honored you come back every week and that you share the Fit Soul podcast with your friends and family. Every time you share my podcast on Instagram or Facebook, I do a little happy dance. Make sure you subscribe to the Fit Soul podcast where you'll never miss an episode. You can go to Podcast, Apple, Stitcher, and Spotify and subscribe so you'll never miss an episode release. And just know, I truly love bringing you excellent content and great guests to provide you motivation and faith inspiration to help you walk worthy. And one of the ways you can help me is to go and leave the Fit Soul podcast a review. If you have just a moment, would you please go over and leave a review for the Fit Soul podcast? Thank you again. I love you. And here is your reminder. You are worthy. Until next time. Bye-bye.